when we see the great strides that we've made in telehealth across the last couple of years, obviously fueled by the pandemic, it is exciting to see how much more can be done, right? And then what that really looks like in our day-to-day lives. So Miles talks about, in 2050, he talks about having, the home of the future that's fully outfitted with high-tech systems. He talks about his vision of like the modern shower stall, right? That's monitoring all of your vitals. He talks about having these like ocular or neurological implants that, there's like an interface with that system as well. Full body CT scan. I mean, it's pretty wild.
Wow.
But maybe not so wild. But essentially what we're doing at eVisit is we're saying that's what 2050 looks like. But we also know that you need your 5-year plan.
That's Vanessa Sierra at eVisit talking about the company's CTO and futurist Miles Romney's vision for healthcare in 50 years. Vanessa joined me to talk about how the company looks towards the future of healthcare while working with clients on present virtual care challenges and goals. She also talks about the company's virtual care maturity model to help healthcare organizations identify where they are along the virtual care continuum. I'm Carol Flagg, host of What's My Tagline? And now let's hear more from Vanessa. Well, Vanessa, welcome to What's My Tagline? I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and you're calling in from California, is that correct?
I'm actually in Florida right now, but I am usually based out of Los Angeles.
Oh, got it. Well, I hope you're having good weather down there. It's a little chilly here in Arizona. I say that chilly by our standards.
Which is still pretty chilly, right? I mean, I think I've been out there in December.
It's the dryness, it goes below 70 and I break out my parka, but
that's right.
Well, before we start talking about you and the topic for the show today, as you know, my first question of all my guests, if you had to describe yourself as a tagline, what would it be?
Yeah, and I love that question. So I had to ask the team. I was like, what do you guys hear me say all the time?
You need to buy in on your tagline.
I did. I was like, all right, this is a really good question. What am I going around saying? I think when it came down to, there are a couple of things. So the marketing team. So I'm the VP of marketing for eVisit. It's a health tech company, and so. When I talk to my team, we're really revenue focused, right? So we have the SDR team within marketing. There's about 10 or 11 of us now. And apparently I always talk about reducing the friction between sales and marketing. How do we make things easier, that runs, faster, more smoothly? So I think that's the tagline. I also heard a couple of things about, I'm always asking for the data. So
the data, more data, please.
More data, please. That's the tagline.
Well, I like both those. The first, reducing the friction, that feels to me like that should be like a worldwide tagline. Like we should all have that tagline, right?
That's right.
Especially during the holidays, and more data, please. I think we'll have to find a way to harken back to that in our conversation. But before we talk about eVisit and we're going to talk about your company podcast, Changing Healthcare, and what you guys are doing in the virtual care space. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a walk us down a little path to your background and how you ended up at eVisit.
Sure. Yeah. So I started in healthcare about 15 years ago at a company called the Advisory Board Company.
Oh, yes, of course.
DC.
Yeah.
So I got my start there. I actually did the role of essentially the SDR. Mm-hmm. We called it marketing associates. And yeah,
it sounds so benign.
Right? Yeah, you sign up for a job called marketing associates, and then you show up to work, and you're like, "Oh, okay,
that could be anything."
Yeah, exactly. So, but it was great. I got to learn so much. I got to touch everything, and I still to this day I think operate from a very much like revenue focused marketing approach. So, it's all thanks to that, and I think. I started off an advisory board company, got to learn a lot about healthcare, learned a lot about, the BI tools that we were selling. And then I just, took some other detours along the way, worked in cybersecurity at a company called Telesign out here in LA. I, also worked in kind of like the nonprofit space for a bit, but eventually made my way back into healthcare. And with eVisit, have been just kind of, revisiting all of my healthcare industry knowledge, and it's been really fun.
Yeah. So eVisit, as I said in my intro, and as you said as well, you're a technology company in healthcare in the virtual care space. So tell us about eVisit. Obviously, virtual care with certainly the last couple of years, a growing space, an important space. But obviously, eVisit was around before the pandemic. So tell us about the company real quick, what it does, and what the mission is.
Yeah. So we have a really strong mission. Miles Romney, our CTO, we call him our CTO and on-staff futurist. He's always talking about the 2050 vision for healthcare. So really excited to share that with you. But as far as who we are and what we do, eVisit is the only end-to-end enterprise care delivery platform that's built for health systems, hospitals. And essentially what we're doing, we're out to craft a modern consumer experience in care navigation, care delivery, care engagement. And we're really doing all of that, helping to just optimize and, make their workflows more efficient, helping them save money, increase their ROI, but also deliver quality care. So trying to do all of that at once. But that's really our comprehensive approach. And we've gotten to work with a lot of big health systems, and obviously I'm on the marketing team, so I'm biased and I've seen all the success stories, but we really have some great achievements that we've had with this mission, and working with our product and then working with these health systems, we've been able to accomplish some great things that actually cover all of that.
Yeah, I have to be honest with you. You're the first person I've talked to on my show that talks about a 2050 vision. I mean, that's 30 years. I mean, I can do the math. It's actually 29 years, soon to be 28 years. But, that is quite a ways in the future. And I'm sure your CTO, I'm sure his tagline is, more data, please, as well. That 2050 vision, like when you think about 2050, I'm like, I don't think I may be alive. I'm not really sure. That vision for healthcare, I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, great question. Miles is really good at describing it. So I'll try to do it justice. But I mean, I think, when we see the great strides that we've made in telehealth across the last couple of years, obviously fueled by the pandemic, it is exciting to see how much more can be done, right? And then what that really looks like in our day-to-day lives. So Miles talks about, in 2050, he talks about having, the home of the future that's fully outfitted with high-tech systems. He talks about his vision of like the modern shower stall, right? That's monitoring all of your vitals, where you can kind of stand in front of this glass, in your shower and be able to see, what your vitals are looking like for that day. He talks about having these like ocular or neurological implants that, there's like an interface with that system as well. Full body CT scan. I mean, it's pretty wild.
Wow.
But maybe not so wild. But essentially what we're doing at eVisit is we're saying that's what 2050 looks like, but we also know that you need your 5-year plan. So
right.
We have our product today, here and now. We have your needs, your workflows, the clinical specialties that you might be working in here and now today, what it looks like in 5 years. But just know that we're also building this like full service, full vision of care through 2050 and beyond, right? We want to be there for all of it. So we're building that together.
Oh, that's fascinating. It's a generational outlook.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And eVisit recently launched a podcast show called Changing Healthcare. I think
We
you're
did.
3 or 4 episodes in. Well, I mean, that's music to my ears, no pun intended. Um, so obviously, here at Healthcare Now Radio, we're crazy about podcasts. So talk a little bit about your reason for launching this
Yeah.
podcast and what the podcast is about.
Yeah. I mean, I think for us, the big reason is, we've seen again the rapid change, just the massive disruption to how healthcare was operating pre-pandemic, now post-pandemic, and we felt like so we did a few things. We definitely launched the podcast. We also, and I'd love to share more about this, but we also started creating our own virtual care maturity model.
Oh,
But essentially, yeah, so these tools that we're putting out there that we're starting to release and share with others come after, 18 months of working with health systems, working with, organizations that were really trying to deliver quality care and then pivot and do it, against the backdrop of just ever changing legislation, policies, tools, right? Were they using Zoom, FaceTime, et cetera? So what we felt was like people needed some guidance. People needed to be able to have a forum where they can share with each other, what were these insights, what were these learnings, mostly when it comes to the healthcare leaders, the change makers, the people that really wanted to innovate in the space. We wanted to make sure that there was a forum for them to talk and to share. And at the same time, making sure that we were sharing very pragmatic content, things that would just make their lives easier, make their days a little bit better, right? Make sure that they can go back to their boss and say, hey, I have a solution for that thing that we've been like scratching our head about. So that was the purpose of the podcast was to bring some clarity and some guidance and some sharing of insights, among people that are really doing big things in healthcare right now.
yeah. So I think that's really fascinating. Virtual care did not, is not an overnight thing, meaning, COVID didn't arrive and all of a sudden we had virtual care. It's obviously been
Right.
in development for, telemedicine, obviously decades, right? But that's interesting that to attach a maturity model to it, because there is a lot there are a lot of systems out there. Obviously, there are a lot of practices and hospitals and health systems that we're all dealing with this basically overnight. And it reminds me of the health IT adoption maturity model. I don't remember the HIMSS, as a hospital
Yep.
system, you could, yeah. It seems like that might be a similar kind of analogy where I'm a healthcare facility and I can really put a gauge on where I am in that maturity model, because virtual care isn't going away, and it's only, especially with the 2050 vision, it's only
Right.
going to get more ingrained in how we practice healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think people really needed a playbook. They needed something
Yeah,
to help them take to the next level, to help them arrive at present day needs and
right.
present day, quality care of quality requirements. And so when we came up with the playbook, we said, okay, let's come up with the benchmarking system. Let's come up with the strategies that a health system or a hospital can put in place. Who do you need to have in the room? Who do you need to, what type of tools do you need? What type of things should you be measuring in order to know whether or not this implementation of a virtual care program or model within your health system or hospital is successful? I think that's, you have health systems that are super progressive and innovative. Sometimes you go to their websites and you see it like right there, their number one mission,
Yeah,
has to do
right,
with like
right.
innovation, right? And then you have health systems or hospitals rather that might be like serving a rural community or like, just maybe are focused in that day to day, but they're now being kind of slapped in the face with, we need to have virtual care. So what do we do? So that's a wide range of needs. And we figured within our playbook, we can adapt and we can kind of meet them where they are and help them achieve those goals, which might be, again, the 5-year plan. It might be the let's just get through this year plan.
Right. Let's get through the next 3 months plan. Right.
Right. So that's what we were trying to set out to do, is just create some easy way to have that conversation with them. And of course, our product at the heart of it being an essential tool in that process.
More data, please.
Right.
and so and there are 2 hosts, correct, on the show, and we'll talk about that in a second. But so I'm sure as the show develops and goes along, you're a few episodes in, but you sort of starting these conversations around where you are in this virtual care adoption continuum, correct? Yeah. So tell me about the hosts, because they're I listened to a couple episodes, and they are. I would like to meet them. I mean, they seem like they're quite charming.
Oh, they are. They are.
And I love the album cover. I mean, I really do. It's just like, I was trying to think of, it seems like it's a riff on something, but I couldn't quite get my head around it. So if it is a riff on something, you let me know the imagery.
Oh, no, I mean, but to your point of it being an album cover, I hope we go platinum, Carol. I hope we go platinum. That was just a really nice, Brett and Miles, they're absolutely wonderful. Their chemistry is undeniable. And they just both come equipped with, I think, like 2 different sides of the coin, as I mentioned. So Miles Romney, he's our CTO, co-founder of eVisit, again, talks about healthcare in 2050, visionary. I mean, he talks about eVisit as like, I think it's like how, and again, I can't do it justice. He's just, his thoughts are way ahead of the game. But he talks about eVisit kind of being like, I think it was like the way that books are to Amazon, our platform is to eVisit. It's just the starting point. We really are looking to cover and to help in a broader scope of healthcare. So he's fantastic because of his own background. And then we also have Brett Larson, who's our CEO. And of course, if you've ever heard Brett talk for, 5 minutes, it's like always a great story. And, and
very,
he's been
very anecdotal. Yeah.
Very anecdotal. Exactly. And he's just a lot of fun. And he also has, he's been working now for so many years, outside of, as an entrepreneur, starting eVisit, and then also just working with our clients like Banner Health, Texas Health Resources, Concentra, et cetera. So he comes with the business side of things and then the entrepreneurial side, plus the deep relationships that he has within healthcare, and just kind of always standing alongside innovators in healthcare. So I'm glad you've listened to the first few episodes. More to come for sure. But both of them are just great. They're the official host, and then we have a rotation. So you might have heard some other voices in those episodes. We have our VP of Customer Success, Justin Miller, VP of Product, Ben Gong. These folks are out on the road meeting with some of our customers, and they're also within the company architecting our product roadmap, and just kind of making the magic happen. So lots of fun, host and guest. And we're excited for next year because we're trying to put one out like every month or so. Right. Have some episodes up. But it's been really fun so far.
Yeah. You had me at the album cover. What can I say? which is really, that's part of it. We obviously have a lot of podcast shows in our network, and we help companies launch podcasts. And we always talk about, the number one thing, in our opinion, as our network just hit 1 million plays, so we must be doing something right. But the one thing we talk, I know, the one thing we talk about all the time is that the subject matter is important. The guests are important, but at the end of the day, a podcast is still entertainment, and the hosts, you have to get hooked on the hosts. That they are the driving force behind whether you're going to listen to episode 2, right?
Absolutely.
It's really true. It's really true. So speaking of 2022, and in the CTO's timeline, I mean, that's just a nanosecond away here. But talk about 2022. There's obviously conversations around perhaps this pandemic, it has eased up, I guess, but certainly with vaccines, but, trying to close the door on it, or at least get it to a livable situation. And what will be the evolution of that as we get through this initial 2 years of virtual care? What do you see happening in 2022 with eVisit and virtual care?
Yeah, good question. So I think a few things. It's interesting to see. I was just listening to some stats. We had a couple of members of our team attended the ATA conference in DC last week, and so from that we just got some updates on some fun facts around healthcare in the last couple of years. And one of the things that stood out to me was they said in 2019 there were 840,000 Medicare virtual visits. In 2020 there were 53 million.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, wow.
Right? Yeah. So it's just thinking about that number, thinking about the goals that we have in front of us at eVisit from a care delivery standpoint, like as a care delivery platform. How do we help streamline workflows for our customers? We saw so much success working with customers like Concentra, as an example. When we first started working with them, they had what we would call oversimplified, but like 42 clicks for a patient to be able to see a doctor and get through their whole visit. After working with us, we got that down to 7 clicks.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so when I think about these numbers going from 840,000 to 53 million, adding the layer of what a company like eVisit focuses on to simplify healthcare delivery to everyone, everywhere. I think for 2022, it's really just dialing in, more on making sure that we are working with the right health systems, the right hospitals, the ones that are ready for that innovation, that are ready to take that to the next level. I think that's going to be really important to us. And then I think also health equity, right? Like we can't have a conversation about virtual care without talking about health equity. I think those are big pieces that are top of mind for us. And then of course, based on where I sit at the organization as the VP of marketing and also working with our SDRs, we're excited about HIMSS. We're excited about
conferences,
in-person conferences, forums. Fingers crossed, Carol.
Fingers crossed on that for sure. Yeah. It's interesting. You were talking about those numbers. I was reading actually this morning, ironically enough, about the study that HSS came out with, that probably you saw that too, I'm sure, that Medicare telehealth utilization increased by 63-fold in 2020. So that's how you get to that big number, and so it was a pretty big study by HSS. Well, Vanessa, first of all, I look forward to meeting you in person at some point in 2022. I think that would be terrific, and congratulations on the success of the virtual care maturity model, the podcast Changing Healthcare, and just the thought leaders that you have at the top of the food chain. Amazing stuff. You can learn more about Vanessa Sierra on LinkedIn, and be sure to check out eVisit online at eVisit.com and follow them on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can learn more about this show on the program page at healthcarenowradio.com, and be sure to follow me on Twitter at Carol Flagg or on LinkedIn. Have a topic or a guest idea for the show? Send an email to carol@healthcarenowradio.com. Till next time, I want to know, what's your tagline?